Hello everyone, welcome to the EPG Pathshala. I am Rajeshwari Moganty from the Department of Biochemistry, All India Institute of Medical Sciences. This module is on differential scanning calorimetry or DSC, popularly known as. This is module number 26 in paper 3 on thermodynamics of living systems and bioenergetics. So, we have already studied in the previous module on isothermal calorimetry. Then why need to have to study differential scanning calorimetry, which is another calorimetric technique, that is. But then what do you actually understand by differential scanning calorimetry? This is another calorimetric technique that is used to study biophysical parameters of polymers and biopolymers. In both these, a kind of similar techniques are used. Then the question comes to the mind, why DSC and why not ITC? And also question comes to your mind, when do I have to use ITC, when do I have to use DSC, and do I have to use both ITC and DSC under any circumstances, or is it that both the techniques give different information, so that I do for the same experiment ITC, for the same system of a polymer drug, both ITC and DSC, and can I get more information? These are the things for anyone getting, can think that why doing another DSC, another calorimetric technique. Although both are synonymous in calorimetric techniques, but sometimes both are required, and I would say that both ITC and DSC have its own benefits, have its own inherent properties, and gives different kind of information. That is why obviously another technique has been evolved. Now, these are explained in this module, like why you have to do all this and where and when you have to use this. Now, generally by and large DSC is actually used during the protein engineering experiments, when you are trying to compare the thermodynamic stability or thermal stability between one parent molecule, parent protein, and then an engineered protein. So, you both are comparing whether you are what you call the biomedical engineering you do of a protein, or a protein engineering you do, and you came up with a new protein, whether it is a better one or a worse one, or there is no change. So, when you want to do such comparisons, DSC is actually much more preferred. That is one. Number two, that DSC actually finds its application in assessing the protein's thermal and conformational stability. When I say that, what I mean is the protein temperature, melting temperature TM is actually determined by DSC, and ITC will not tell you what is the melting temperature. So, these are some of the two gross advantages, but we will be doing more of this technique and understand its technique, this technique, and apply it to biological macromolecule. So, basically the DSC profile, when you do an experiment, provides the melting temperature of any macromolecule which you are doing, or any individual domains. So, what do you mean by melting temperature? That it is actually you are doing as a function of temperature. In ITC we never change the temperature, we are trying to see what are the heat changes coming out, and whether this heat change can be used to compensation with a energy component, power component, by using a electrical signal. But here it is possible to determine the thermodynamic properties of the folding and unfolding of a protein. That means, by folding and unfolding will only occur, it is an equilibrium process which is a reversible process in case of proteins, can occur only when you change a parameter, like for example temperature. So, the transition temperature Tm of a protein is higher when the protein actually exhibits better thermostability. So, you can determine two different conditions. If Tm is high, that is better, and if Tm is lower, that does not have much stability as compared to the original protein. So, this is one big advantage of DSC. Now, the higher the better, because thermostability is correlated with the reduced aggregation based on the comparison of thermostability data against the data of the bioanalytical techniques, such as you can do the size exclusion chromatography and other things. So, the better the long term stability that can be expected, for example, in the antibodies having higher Tm, when reduced tendency towards the aggregation, making them a potential candidates to produce better biotherapeutics. So, that is one advantage of the DSC. The other two alternatives techniques other than the DSC are usually the ITC one, of course, and also the other one is SPR, or the surface plasma resonance. So, these techniques actually give you way to determine the secondary structure, validation screens are used, but DSC is often used mainly is to test small molecules ability to bind and thermally stabilize the protein of interest. Usually the secondary structure, secondary screening is done to validate the hits coming from the larger screen. So, why actually DSC is so unique? I mean, what is special about it? What makes DSC unique is actually its specificity for the subset of the small molecule or the ligands, which they stabilize, which they bind and then stabilize the protein, which are thermally stabilizing it. Whereas, if you compare with any other technique, ITC other techniques, they will not tell you whether they are stabilizing or not. They cannot just they just tell you that they bind, but they do not tell whether it is stabilizing or not stabilizing. Only the binding strength is given, binding constant is given, and thermal. That means that reaction is actually spontaneous thermodynamically, but stabilization is not given. That is why DSC will tell you is that whether protein is stabilized or not. That is one major difference. Other one is DSC is very easy to do experiment as compared to that of ITC, because number one, it requires very small amount of sample, and also relatively the concentration can be maybe less than 200 micrograms per well is enough. So, they do not no assaying is different is needed, and also to measure a number of characteristic properties of the sample is possible. Then DSC can also be used to observe fusion or the crystallization events in a well, in a case like a glass transition temperatures. These are all possible to do in DSC. DSC can also use the study the oxidation processes, as in case of some of the chemical reactions. So, in that sense the DSC actually is a unique technique. So, the objectives are differential scanning calorimetry introduction is given in the first part. Then of course, technical and instrumentation details are given information content is given, how to analyze the data of what you get from DSC, types of biomolecular experiments, what are the things you can do with using DSC. So, to start with, this is how a DSC instrument looks like, similar to DSC, but it has a coil. You can see these are the various parts, major parts where the the sample is kept, where the solution is washed. All of them are labeled neatly to understand. The plate, where the plate goes into this robotic arm which receives the sample and so forth. So, it is actually can be used for a large number of samples. This can work from -10 to 130 degrees, and the scan can be done from 0.001 to 2 degree per minute. It is really good. I mean, with a very slow scan one can do. The volume is up to 0.3 ml, 0.33 ml minimum volume, and geometry capillary or cylindrical. The material is again platinum or gold, the cell where you keep the sample. The operating pressure is up to 6 atmospheres. Now, what does DSC actually tell you? The graph is shown here, a typical graph which is different from the ITC. X axis is the temperature. As you change the temperature, what you are measuring is a partial molar heat capacity, that is in kilojoules is plotted on the y axis. So, you get actually a peak with a Tm, that is a melting temperature. So, this is shown as a heat capacity change Cp determined from the baseline shift before and after unfolding, and that dCp is positive, which shows that primarily reflects exposure of the hydrophobic groups of the protein. Now, the midpoint actually gives you Tm, that is a melting temperature, and DSC is only a technique that allows a direct measurement of Tm, dCp as well as dH, that is the change in the enthalpy dH. These values are much more accurate than indirect method. I keep telling that indirect methods are those spectroscopic methods and any other SPR other method. This is a direct method. From these measured values one can calculate entropy and therefore, you can determine the free energy change. Importance of the heat capacity. The heat capacity of a folded protein is due to its specific sequence, number of factors that actually contribute to the heat capacity. This is a theory part of the protein, how not really DSC, I am talking about the how a heat capacity of a folded protein, what are the factors that contribute. One is a sequence which is a main thing, then the hydration factor which is a minor, and also the other factors are the non-covalent interactions which are contributing to the secondary and tertiary structures. Therefore, change in the heat capacity during unfolding primarily reflects changes in the hydration. But determining the absolute change in the heat capacity of the protein at any temperature during the scan, including before and after folding, actually requires ultra stable and reproducible baselines. Therefore, baseline plays a very important role. The heat capacity of the folded protein is not constant and does not change linearly. So, that is why you have to do the baseline at a different temperatures even for the protein before folding. Knowing the molecular weight and concentration of the protein allows the partial molar heat capacity of the protein throughout the scan to be determined, and therefore, this is important. Practical implications are that protein with lower heat capacity is more rigid and more selective when binding to a ligand. The protein with higher heat capacity is much more flexible and less selective. This is the information we gather by determining the heat capacity of a protein from DSC. These are some of the sample preparation methodology which I will rush through, because this has a similar to that of the what we learned from ITC. Dialyze the samples and degas it, condition both the cells with the buffer and so on, and determine the concentration, and degassing the sample will reference cell both sample as well as the baseline as well as the sample. The sample running is also done. Then the experimental considerations can also be taken into account. Then the regular cleansing of the DSC cell is important, as mentioned earlier, that you have to wash it with the 50% formic acid, then again clean it properly, then again use the the deionized water, and repeated cleaning, repeated number of times you have to do this, so that you can get a clean sample. If however there is excessive noise in the subsequent scans, then there is a suspect that there is a residual or precipitate. That is one indication that your cell is not clean, because it keeps giving the background noise or the in the baseline. Therefore, then it actually tells you you have time to clean it properly. Filling of the cells is shown, how to take the sample and then introduce you into the cell with the pipette. This is the data analysis. This is how you see it on the screen when you get the data. I will be discussing in a more detail in the further slides. Fit the baseline, you have to do this baseline first. Then deconvolting the thermograms, you have to put them all together, estimate the number of transitions and to determine the TM. Actually, you have to do an auto fit. Once you get the data, you will not know which it is fitting to which type of enthalpy changes. There what you do is to if you get the change in the d van der Waals by the Van 't Hoffs by the compared to the change in the calorimetric, then it tells you that folding to unfolding is actually a two-state phenomena. But the ratio, if it is greater than 1, then it will tell you that unfolding is cooperative. That means unfolding of one domain destabilizes the other domains, therefore, they cause them to unfold. So, the three-phase phenomena, that is the ratio equal to 1, that is a two-state, then greater than 1, then it is a cooperative phenomena, and less than 1, that means it is unfolding in a stepwise phenomena, one after the other. So, when you have a more than one site binding sites, this kind of change in the comparative heat changes will tell you what type of binding it is. So, that is very interesting part of this DSC. Representative of scans, how do you get as a function of temperature? Cp is shown on the y axis. I just showed you some of our data with different samples. Now, what are the applications? One application is to do a protein, and then what is it to, whether to see whether it is immobilized protein or is there any derivatization. Nothing is required for this experiment. So, a small amount of protein is taken maybe, and then you can do the for temperature scan and determine the what do you call the melting temperature. Protein stability. The mutated proteins actually make the protein, if you are mutating or any modification you are doing protein, sometimes they may be more stable, more specific or fast binding, and also have new properties. So, these are the things one can study in this. Useful to predict outcome of a mutation. So, a need to be, there is a need to have a database of thermodynamically characterized proteins. So, for example, enthalpic changes, if you take changes in the hydrophobic interactions, hydrogen bonding and electrostatic interactions, which are actually compensated by the entropic changes which are coming from solvation and conformational freedom. So, therefore, delta G, that is delta H minus T delta S unfolding occurs when there is a TDS increases sufficiently. Therefore, biopolymer unfolding is actually endothermic phenomena. Now, similarly, protein domain subunit interactions are shown on this thing. It is an unfolded state, some random protein sequence is shown to you, and there is a native state and unfolded state or a denatured state. Now, when you see this folding and unfolding a small protein or a domain or a subunit, which is can be a cooperative phenomena. So, folding of these units is often called by a two-state phenomena, and if these small units can fold and unfold reversibly, remember reversibility of a phenomena can be measured using this equation which you determine from the DSC. That is a delta U into delta H calorie equal to delta U, that is a folded, into H Van 't Hoff energy, Van 't Hoff enthalpy. So, the enthalpy you get actually from these is Van 't Hoff enthalpy. If this equation is true, that means the reaction is reversible, I mean follows the reversibility. The protein domain and subunit stabilities also can be studied. Unfolding of the domains and subunits with different thermal stabilities produce asymmetric thermograms. For example, if you have a monomer, the lower part of the curve, you get a phenomena, you get a DSC like this, single peak. If you have a dimer, then you can get a peak which a different type of peak. Deconvolution, so similarly you have a 3 and so on and so forth. Deconvolution of the unfolding of the thermogram actually helps you to determine the number of domains or subunits. So, that way you determine how many are there, multimer or a trimer or a tetramer. DSC quickly reveals these stability changes and throws light on how the sequence and thermodynamics actually interact. So, practical implications are of this experiment is that how the altered protein might cause a disease, or how can it actually target a drug or any ligand or any therapeutic molecule. So, by understanding the domain, how many domains are there, how domains interact is one property or the characterization which you can do from the DSC. Then we do not talk so much about the membranes or the lipids, nevertheless they are really important. They do play a important role in stabilization of the proteins. We talked so much of the DNA interaction, protein interaction, but membrane protein interactions are very important because the membrane contains a large number of proteins. Now, this slide tells you how the membrane proteins are shown in a schematic presentation, and then of course, the lower graph shows the DSC. About 30% of the proteins are actually associated with the cell membrane, and membranes are hydrophilic outside and hydrophobic inside. So, the protein that bind are in a different fashion. So, does a protein insert into a specific membrane or not? That is one important information the DSC can give you. The most techniques are affected by cloudiness, light scattering, etc., but DSC is not affected. So, that is one important phenomena we can do using DSC. Now, also detergents are required to solubilize the membrane proteins. Now, interactions of the membrane proteins with detergent lipids can be studied using the DSC. A lot of time you use detergent in the preparation of the membrane proteins. Binding of the ligands to bipolymer, that is using DSC. Here we are showing with an example of a protein RNase ribonuclease and in present of a DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide 5%. If such a concentration is changed, then you have a different type of profiles. If ligand binds preferentially to a folded protein, the TM of the protein will increase. Now, generally the more and the tighter the binds, the more it means the number of molecule that bind to the protein is also high, and also the strength with which it binds is also high, that is tighter, then actually the TM increases. So, you can from determining the TM with different ligand concentrations, you can actually determine that whether it is stabilizing or not. Valid if comparing relative binding ligands to the same protein or to the same ligand to different proteins. DSC is actually a quick way to determine if two molecules interact or not, these two. So, this is one example I have shown you. So, we talked about the protein. Now, we will be talking about the differential scanning calorimetry of nucleic acids. Now, the DSC of the triplex DNA we have shown here from our laboratory in 10 millimolar sodium calculate buffer, and how the TM1 and TM2 tell you that what is the denaturation process. As you know, the DNA triplex has 3 strands. So, the first strand, that is a third strand, is a weaker binding with the what do you call the Hooke's-Stern base pairing. So, the TM1 will be the which lower melting temperature. So, the third strand comes out first, or the dissociates. So, that is one is shown as a 56.28 degrees. Whereas, a double strand which is of a Hooke's-Stern Watson-Crick base pairing, which is more strong and melts at a later temperature or a higher temperature, that is TM2. So, this biphasic phenomena is typically seen only in a more than two types of temperatures. This clearly shows that there is a triplex formation in this particular DNA. So, this is one example where DSC can tell you whether conformation is whether it is a monophasic or a biphasic or even a triphasic. This is to the lipids. We talked about the membrane protein, but lipids are also present in the membrane, and we haven't talked so much about it. The various reports actually suggest that the use of the DSC for analysis of oils, lipids, they actually better in solubilizing in the organic solvents than in water. So, these lipids and oils have to be studied in a separate fashion. Now, they also have they encompass a large component in the membrane, and therefore, they participate in cell growth, apoptosis, etc. Now, DSC can be used to study the oxidative processes, lipid peroxidation, linoleic acid, complexes like lecithin, which have enormously helped in understanding the thermo-oxidative processes. So, we have used DSC for proteins, lipids, membranes, nucleic acids, biopolymers. After talking so much about its advantages, nevertheless, it is need to mention, there is a need to mention the limitations. Now, what are the limitations? DSC is actually relatively a slow phenomena, and actually consumes lot of time for one sample. Whereas, DSC also can miss actually weak binders. You remember I mentioned in ITC you can do the weak binders, but not strong binders. Here actually it is the other way. that here you cannot do weak binders, but you can do a strong binding Kd which is greater than 500 micromolars, you can do it, but not lower than that. So, the SPR and ITC are preferred if the Kd is high, and if Kd is low, then ITC is preferred and DSC is preferred if Kd is very high. So, this is one big difference. Whereas, the DSC also is sometimes used for the dose response response to determine Kd, but this only works if the binding is mostly entropically driven. That is also one drawback. So, one of the important thing is we do not talk about pH changes, because in biological systems most of the time the physiological pH is constant. However, if you change the pH, many proteins have a Tm which is actually dependent on pH and the experimental conditions. But for example, if a compound is being tested has a particularly high concentration such as 2 millimolar if you take, and there is a kind of dihydrochloride salt can be formed, and that can release the protons. If it is, say for example, if the proton is change in the pH is very high enough, in the sense like it is enough to change the Tm of the protein, then you are going to get a false positive or a false negative, because the pH contributes enormously to protein structure and that can in turn change its Tm. So, if there is a pH change, one has to be careful in taking the results with a pinch of salt, or the authenticity of the results should be taken carefully. If such a case is there, then what is advised is rather to determine use a strong buffer, so that the buffer capacity will be high and the change in pH is slightly minimized, so that there will not be structural change. So, in such cases this is one important phenomena to be kept in mind. So, the summary of this module is that DSC is a thermoanalytical technique in which the difference in the amount of heat required to increase the temperature of a sample and reference is measured as a function of temperature, and the result of the DSC experiment is a curve of heat flux versus temperature versus time, and that can be used to calculate enthalpies of transitions. Now, I also explained to you how DSC can be used for different polymers, and that can be used to measure a number of characteristic properties of the sample. Using this technique, it is possible to observe fusion also, crystallization of events, as well as a glass transition temperature in case of industries. DSC one can also use for oxidation process and chemical reactions, lipid oxidation, fusion, cellular fusion, and so on and so forth. It is most often used to study binding of small molecules such as medicinal compounds, alkaloids and so on, to larger macromolecules, proteins, DNA, lipid, membrane. So, all these applications are discussed in this module, and I hope you enjoyed this topic. Thank you.